here is the blank canvas. Now, obviously you're going to be choosing clothes that you love to wear, that fit you really well, and that are reasonably well made, that you know they're going to last you. Don't start embroidering onto a $5 t-shirt unless you just want to have a practice run, absolutely. But things that suit you, that look good on you, and that you know you're going to be wearing for a while. I'd like to see a lot of embroidery on this top, because for me it's kind of asking for a really big, kind of loud pattern onto it. Now I've got these two to consider for my sleeves, and I think this one is probably a bit too big for the sleeve, because the sleeve is actually quite small, although maybe that wouldn't be too small. But if you wanted to, you could always turn it sideways and stitch it that way. Or if you really like this pattern, you can always cut it in half and get rid of those little leaves there and just stitch half onto each sleeve. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put these on the sleeves there. And then I've got two of these, that's from the pack as well. So I was thinking maybe I would put them here and here, so on either side. And then it still needs something under there. So I could potentially put that under here like this, just to sort of balance it out. And obviously after we finish stitching the patterns, we're going to be adding some borders, little details like that around. Now I'm going to show you how you actually place these patterns onto the shirt, because it's not enough to just peel and stick it on, because what you're going to end up is with one that's kind of sitting up here and maybe one that's a little bit lopsided. So I'll show you a trick that you can get it right. It's very important that you iron your garment before starting, so that you can actually see the whole structure of it, and everything is flat and everything is nice and even. Now I'm ironing the sleeve, and I'm going to iron a crease so that I know exactly where the middle of the sleeve is. And it's not enough to just sort of lay it down flat. You want to make sure that the crease actually lines up with the seam up here. So now we know exactly where the center of the sleeve is. Now I'm going to iron down a crease down the center, so that I know exactly where the center line of the front is. First, I'm going to stick this onto one of the sleeves, and I'm going to fold it in half. And now I'm going to use a pen to mark out the center line here and here. Then I'm going to get my sleeve and lay it out flat. And you can see now we've got a center line here and we've got our center marked out. So we're going to get this part right. And we've just got to decide how far up and down, and I would put it right into the middle. So I'm going to measure the length of that and then minus that, divide in half. So I'm just going to mark that there. This is a heat erasable pen that I'm using, and technically this should fit right in that space. Yes, it does. Now we're going to peel it and stick it on. If your sleeve, like mine, is a little bit bulky and hard to sort of flatten out because there's fabric underneath, you can put something inside. I've just got a small chopping board, because all you need to flatten out is just that space there. So we're going to put it down like that, and I can still see my crease here and my 2 points. Now the reason I drew over the top of these is because now when we peel it, we'll be able to see, because that crease is going to disappear. So I'm going to line up that top mark and the bottom mark. And then we have it. That's ready to stitch. these are the two patterns that I'm going to be placing on either side of the V-neck. This one looks a little bit different because today I'm going to be testing out the pre-printed stitch lines, but it is the same design. Now, it is not enough to just eyeball your pattern and just place it somewhere, because you're not going to get it straight unless you're super clever. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to give ourselves a little bit of guidance with some added lines on the fabric. With my first side, what I'm going to do is just roughly sort of place my pattern where I think I would like it. So I don't want it to be too far at the top, because there's actually not much space in between the seams. So I'm going to put it maybe about here. That looks like enough space in between the pattern and the edge of the neckline. So over here is where I think I would be happy with it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark on the fabric where these center lines are. So here and here. Placed my pattern exactly where I wanted it. I marked the bottom and the top with a T, so that my pattern ends here and there's the center line. It ends here and there's the center line. I've removed that, taken my tape measure and laid it down between those 2 points until my tape measure actually hits this pre-creased center line. Then I've marked it here and I've marked it there on the shoulder. To recreate this positioning, all we have to do is measure from here to here, which is 7.5 centimeters. And then measure from here to where the top of that T is, which is 6.5 centimeters. Now I've placed my measuring tape in the same line as that is, and all I have to do now is measure that distance, which was 6.5 centimeters. There's our matching T, and then from here to here is 19 centimeters. And there's our second T. Obviously it's not finished, but I wanted to put this on just to see the progress of it and see where these sit. So this is actually a pretty good distance from the edge of the shoulder to here, because if it was any further up, I think it would start kind of disappearing over the shoulder, whereas this way it seems to sit quite well. Now I am going to add another design in the center here, most probably this one. That kind of lends itself to sitting right in the middle, has a nice finish. Now what I'm going to show you next is a close-up video of how I stitch using these lines that I've added over the top of the pattern. I did a test of that yesterday and it actually works really well. I'm very happy.